everybody. My name is Candie Zenon. I'm an author and a life coach, and I am the CEO founder of Changing Seasons Life Coaching, where I help single moms strengthen their faith, family, and finances. And I want to welcome you back to another show of ConverSAGEtions. I'm here today with Mr. Uri Fogel, way from Australia. He's here to tell us about the male's perspective of the highlight and the twilight. And he's going to give us 5 points, points of view. Well, as you know, that Sage was created as a multi-generational platform. We learn the experiences from the people that are sitting right next to us. We glean from them just to make life a little easier, a little better. And I am here with Mr. Fogel to get the male's perspective, because we can't just tap into those who look like us. We have to tap into everybody that's around us we can learn from. So, Mr. Fogel, who is Mr. Uri Fogel?
It's a long story, but I'll shorten it.
Okay.
Very quickly, I was born in Russia, moved to Poland, from Poland to Australia.
Okay.
That's me as a human being, as a young man. And in Australia, during my life, I've done many things successfully. I failed many times, and I've succeeded. And during that time, at particular age of 54, I was an atheist.
Oh, wow.
I didn't believe in God. I was actually teaching people against God.
Okay.
So at the age of 54, I had an encounter with him on a beach in Australia. And that's another story. It has changed my life completely. It's telling me, I would say to people, if you wear a jacket with a bright red lining, and it's a white jacket, it's like turning that jacket inside out and walking down the street.
What was the one instant thing that you noticed that he changed when you accepted Christ as your Lord and Savior?
I think the biggest thing is who I was. I was arrogant. I was self-centered. I wouldn't sit with a tradesman and have coffee.
Oh, wow.
I was a snob. And so that I wasn't a crook or anything like that. And I was very sure of myself that I am the best thing since sliced bread.
All right.
So the change was overnight, very dramatic, and of course I am Jewish.
Okay.
So it's accepting Jesus, not calling me Yeshua. I didn't know that I, as a Jew, have a Yeshua, that he was Jewish. So it was a very dramatic time, and the change, as I said, it changed me totally from inside out. And then God introduced people into my life that guided me into who I am today.
Okay.
And it's basically nearly, as one says, black and white, who I used to be to who I am today.
So what is the one word or phrase or scripture you live by now?
I think the most important, and what I live by and what I see in others, Jesus gave us 2 commandments.
Okay.
Number 1, love him with all your heart and soul and mind. What does that mean? He also told us, if you love me, obey my commandments. So when I talk to you, I want to see your lifestyle. I want to see who you are. And it's all based, if you say you love him, are you obeying his commandments?
His commandments.
Do you live with a guy
Yes.
without being married?
Oh, no.
That's what I'm saying.
Okay.
So the second commandment was, love your neighbor as you love yourself. Well, what does that mean? I would say to people, if your neighbor overnight drops a pile of concrete on your driveway, and then 3 days later, you'll hear that he's not very well, are you prepared to cook him dinner? Knock on the door, he's just done this to you, and give him dinner. That's what Yeshua meant when he says, love your neighbor.
I'm so happy you're bringing that up, because I'm hosting a conference April 18, 2020, right here in Atlanta, Georgia. It's called I Am the Gift Experience, Loving Yourself, Mind, Body, and Spirit. And how to love yourself and redefine that description of loving yourself. And I get excited about that, so I'm thinking faster than I can talk, because I can only love my neighbor to the extent that I love myself. And if I don't know how to love myself or know what that looks like, I only give you an extension of what I have defined as love. So I can only love what I love in me and you, and I hate what I hate in me and you. But it's not because of you. It's because of how I first viewed myself. So we're gathering a neurologist here to talk about cell trauma, how we house the traumas in the cells of our bodies. And we're fighting it with diet and exercise, but it's really that grief, that depression, that disappointment, that loss, that dis-ease that's in our body that we've never dealt with. That anger, that unforgiveness that's housed in the cells of our body. Because if we don't allow those emotions, which is energy in motion, to come through our eyes, it will find a way to house itself in our organs, and it'll weep in our organs. So, and we go to the medical professions, and they medicate it or they cut it out, but it was really started in the emotions. So we're having a neurologist come and talk about that. We also having a clinical psychiatrist come in and talk about the way that we handle our emotions. We having an OB-GYN come, 2 life coaches that come out, and we're going to redefine that description of loving ourselves. Because no, I'm not going after my neighbor if I'm hurt and if I'm depressed and if I'm oppressed. And if I'm angry with something that's going on inside of me, I know I'm not going to cook for my neighbor. Because at this point, if the neighbor needs a meal, I can't give it to you because I'm upset about the cement you just left in my driveway.
That's and you know, it's interesting you say, because when my passion in a ministry that I have online called Voice for the Spirit, my passion, which I realize, is to teach people to love God. Mm-hmm. Now, a lot of us go to church or synagogue. Mm-hmm. A lot of us spend time in Bible college. And yet, what I'm trying to teach people is to love God without the church, without the preacher, without motivator, someone like yourself or myself, is to learn how to spend time with God alone in your closet. You should say to us, how do you pray? The disciples asked him. And they said, well, he said, go in your closet. Mm-hmm. What does that mean? Closet's a little space. There's nobody.
But in a Jewish religion, isn't that you pulling over the
you can. Mm-hmm. But it's nowhere where people can see your right hand or dance. It is something that you do, and then you have to believe in your heart that you're actually talking to God. Mm-hmm. You're in a kitchen, you could be in your bedroom, but you're actually talking to God. Mm-hmm. And where is He? He's in your spirit. He's not in your Bible, He's not in your church, He's not in your preacher.
Great is He that
He's
is
in your spirit. Mm-hmm. So the Voice for the Spirit ministry is about getting people to connect spirit to spirit.
Yes.
So something prompts you in your spirit. And when I met Sharon, which we're talking about, it was my spirit that told me, yes, okay, that's the one. So what I'm saying, so my passion is, the other thing is, what I've learned a few years ago, I gave up all my rights. Okay. I'm not entitled to be here. Mm-hmm. I'm not entitled to be interviewed by you. Okay. I'm not entitled to have these Jews. Okay. I'm not entitled to anything. Okay. But everything I receive, no matter how small it is, it's a gift from God. Amen. If it's a glass of water, it's all I get all day. Mm-hmm. It's a gift from God. That's beautiful. And the second thing I learned is contentment. Okay. So I really content, and never I had times when I lived on the island in Australia, I had $4 in the bank. Okay. And I had 3 days to live. Right. Okay. The fridge had a bread, butter, and a bit of fitting. Okay. I had to be content. I have to be innovative, and I had knowing that on Friday I'll get my pension check. Okay. Or a gift from God. Uh-huh. So that's hard to live in a society we live. Mm-hmm. That means we want more. We want nice fashion. Mm-hmm. That doesn't mean I don't love those things. Yes, I do. Mm-hmm. So that really set me free. That I'm not entitled to anything. I'm not entitled to a happiness, I'm not entitled to sadness, but whatever comes, God gives it to me.
And that's also a relationship, because when the Hebrews were taken out of Egypt, and God said that I brought you here so that you may worship me and so that you may learn who I am. And so that was teaching them who He was, Abba Father, Jehovah Jireh, the God that provides. Because before, Egypt was providing the leeks and the onions, but now God was providing manna, and they had to get used to that. And I love to tell my daughters, ask God, who are you, God, and who are you to me? Outside of mama's God, outside of mama, preacher, teacher, or church, or anybody dictating to you who God is, because God is God enough not only to hear you, but to respond. And he's going to respond in the vernacular that you're used to, a way that you know, and you're going to have that personal encounter. And with me, although I came from the womb to the pew, I still had to develop a personal relationship with the Savior, that of the God that my mom may have introduced me to, but now I had to know him for myself. And the only way that I had a chance to know him was during my wilderness experience. And it was one day when I had called out to God. I was pretty much praying in equivalent of a child giving a Christmas wish list to Santa Claus. Like, I want this, I want this, I want this, I need this, I want this, I want this. And then finally I just like, God, who are you? And who are you to me? And I said that I was going on a fast for intimacy with God, because I really didn't know who he was in definition to me. So that began a 5-day encounter with God. And when you said that God is the spirit within, and he talks to your spirit, I had a chance to see people 3-dimensional. I would see the person as we look at each other right now. I would see the skeleton of the person, and I would see the essence, the spirit of the person that hovers right behind the rib cage. And I was hearing 3-dimensional, like I can have a conversation with the person, but I can also hear their spirit of what they truly were saying and how they truly thought about me. But that encounter, that 5-day encounter with God, got me through a divorce. It got me through giving birth to a premature baby. It got me through 3 hurricanes. It got me through when they said you need to pack for evacuation for 5 days, and by the 6th day I was declared homeless. So it got me through when I had to drive up past New Orleans. I'm from Lake Charles, but when I drove past New Orleans, I had never been past New Orleans. But when I drove to unfamiliar territory and complete strangers became instant friends, I knew that I could hold on to the God who will provide. Because like David found out that he never leave me nor forsake me. And that's that personal relationship that we all need to have, that pastor can't dictate it to you. It comes in that personal encounter in that closet. When you say, have a conversation with me, because I really believe, Mr. Uri, that church should be always confirmation, but revelation comes in the closet.
And I remember in my dark moments as a believer, no money, it was a difficult time, and I used to go to bed and I used to have a notebook, and I would try to write down what blessing I had today.
So would that be the one thing that you had to love through?
Yeah, it kind of, I said, well, what's a good thing happened today? Well, I had coffee at the coffee shop, somebody paid for it. Sometimes it was all it was. Beautiful. It was just, and I had to write down this little notebook to myself. So, well, it was a terrible day. I had to deal with this and that. But what was there that's good? And it could be just a cup of coffee.
Yeah.
Yeah. So it really helped me to get through. But the biggest lesson from my life was, and which I got from my mentor, is once you give up your rights, you then realize it doesn't mean you lose your ambition to get somewhere. But it's not for you.
That's just your surrendering. When you say give up your rights, you mean surrendering to God.
Yeah, it's a kind of say, well, then you decide, well, God's in charge of your life, and whatever happens. And when I met Sharon, my wife, I realized that what was important to me at the time, why am I meeting her? Because it was accidental, you know, and what's this about, you know? And then I realized, well, where is God with her in her heart? Not what she knows, not that she's married to somebody for so many years, was a rabbi. They all, but who is she? How does God see her? And that's what really made a difference for me, is to say, well, hang on, you're in a God. You know? Because if I may share, when I started the Voice for the Spirit ministry, I had 2 very top mentors which are still with me, right? And one of them is a personal friend of Billy Graham. Right? So, as I was saying, so that notebook helped me to get through the time. And with the 2 mentors I had, when I met up with them, and I talked about starting that ministry, God laid it on my heart because I gave up my photography for 2 years,
Okay.
to start a church online.
Okay.
It's called Voice for the Spirit. That's purely based on the Spirit.
Mm-hmm.
So people, whatever I put up there, the Spirit connects with me.
Right.
So when I see both my mentors, they said to me, Uri, well, you realize if you ever get married, your ministry won't survive.
Mm-hmm.
And I said to them, I don't want to get married.
Yeah, so talk about that.
And it's interesting, and I said to him, but if God brings a person into my life, I will not tell God what to do.
Okay.
But I'm not looking to get married. I'm not looking to date.
Uh-huh.
I'm content who I am.
Okay.
But at the same time, I don't tell God what to do.
Amen.
And God changes things. So,
Uh-huh.
so that was my attitude when, and because I'm Jewish,
Okay.
my ministry is obviously has a menorah on it.
Okay.
As a symbol, so I attract a lot of Gentiles that are interested in the Jewish way.
Okay.
And that's basically how Sharon and I connected, because she was married to a Messianic rabbi,
Okay.
and I was in a Messianic congregation for 8 years.
Okay.
So I knew exactly what it means for a Gentile
Mm-hmm.
to be married to a Jewish rabbi.
Okay.
So for me, it was kind of, I said, well, it's nothing to do with romance.
Mm-hmm.
It has nothing to do with, it was more to do, it was a divine appointment.
Divine appointment. So when you seen Miss Sharon on this platform that you thought just was to talk about the Jewish customs and ways, but you found out later it was a dating site, and you all connected, and what happened from there?
Well, basically, I was really quite surprised because being Messianic side, and she said, what are you doing on this? You're not looking for a wife. But then we got talking, and she told me a little bit about her and Gary, her husband that passed away. And when I heard the story that a woman was dedicated to one man for all these years, and it's not easy, to be in the ministry, and I've been in the ministry for it. Then we had a lot of common people we knew in the Messianic movement. My rabbi that I was under it for 8 years, his wife was Gentile.
Okay.
And I always admired her, how she has crossed over, Sharon says, and she became more Jewish than Gentile.
Okay.
Because they were running a ministry together.
Okay.
And I've been married before to a Christian lady that went with me to Messianic congregation, but she could never understand what it really is.
Okay.
So when I met Sharon, I heard the story, 2 things I found important. One, her commitment to one man for 38 years.
Okay.
The second thing, and I've been divorced by 2 Christian women,
Okay.
because I don't believe in divorce.
Okay.
It's ungodly. Okay?
Mm-hmm.
So on the 3rd day we spoke, she said to me, I just want to warn you, I do not believe in divorce.
Okay.
It was music to my ears.
Well.
Finally, I'm talking to a woman that professes knows God. Many women do. Say
Okay.
they know, and many men do. But she actually says she knows God.
Mm-hmm.
She had an example of her life that I see, and then she says this magic word.
Mm-hmm.
So that's how we started. The other thing which is interesting, every time we talked on a video, she never wore makeup.
Okay.
She never done her hair. It was, I mean, she was okay, but and later she told me, she said, I did this on purpose. To get to know her. I mean, she's a pretty woman. She's got a beautiful face and smile. So we men get attracted to that,
Okay.
But her attitude towards God was amazing.
Mm-hmm.
It doesn't mean, all things she said was perfect or right. So we got.
So she said she did that on purpose. Why?
Later she told me she wanted me to see her as I would when I get up in the morning.
That's beautiful.
Because, and I made it very clear to her, I'm not interested in romance, I'm not interested in dating, I am here to serve God.
Okay.
And my life is committed to serving Him.
Mm-hmm.
And to serve Him is to obey Him. I said, I had 2 Christian women that divorced me, never gave me a chance to have counseling, and both of them were raising hands, they were listening to Bible in the middle of the night. I said, they're not Christian. I was very, very black and white.
Mm-hmm.
I said, so to me what's more important is the attitude towards God, not what you do, not what you know, not how much Hebrew you know. That wasn't that important to me. And I wanted to make sure Now, she didn't have any money. There was motivation.
Okay.
Because every time I met a lady that has money, I don't have any. That was a headache. You know, they disappeared very quickly.
Okay.
So that was motivation for me, because we both don't have money.
Okay.
I have a very healthy pension from Australia for the rest of my life. It's reasonable, but I can't live on that in Australia. But
you felt that it would be a control factor if one had
no,
more
it
than
was.
the other?
You know, my experiences has been that if she had money, she owned a nice home, her children would be worried, what is he bringing to the table?
Mm-hmm.
Why is he with you?
Mm-hmm.
It wasn't about it's the family, because when you give up all your rights, your focus is always on the other person. It's never on you.
Okay.
What is it that you can do to improve other person's life? So the last thing I wanted to do is enter into a relationship with the children and start to say, well, what is Uri bringing?
Right.
Why is his age, he's had all this amazing business, and why isn't he got any money?
So that brings in doubt, anxiety,
all those
questioning of your character.
Yeah, that's right. And so when I heard she's got no money, I said, oh, that's good. I don't have any either. The other reason is my life is totally dependent on God.
Okay.
I cannot depend on my ability. I'm actually frightened of my ability. That means if I start doing things, and photography that I do, I'm gifted that way, you know, and I know I am. So it's, you know, and I'm in the middle of establishment. So for me, what I want to be in a situation that I depend on Him. That doesn't mean I'm not responsible. Of course I am, to the level that I have. And so they were the important things. And
so what would be the thing that you feel that you learned from this? Like, you're coming to a platform, and I say you bumped into a wife, just on the journey of loving God and just learning Him as your Yeshua, and your Savior as in a Christian way. Do you still say, is that Messianic Jewish?
Look, to be honest with you, I'm a little bit not involved in study and Hebrew and all this. I have a lot of knowledge. I have a personal relation with God. But my example is the two scriptures I mentioned before. I watch people's life. I watch their behavior. Do they get angry with a neighbor? They're the things I look for in if I'm going to spend the rest of my life with that person. How do they love their children? What happens, you know? How do they deal with difficult situations? You know, so they're the things that are important. And is God always number one? Or do they depend on their pastor to guide them step by step? Or
are they on strict, or is God the last resort? Or like, sometimes people say, well, I did everything I could do, so now I pray. All I can do is pray. Well, prayer should be the first thing.
That's right.
And then everything else would come to you that you need.
The understanding of who I am and who she was, of course, has a very strong part. Okay. Because I've been married before to two Christian ladies. They didn't understand what it means to be a Messianic Jew. Okay. They didn't understand what it means to say that Yeshua was a Jewish Messiah. You know, what does that mean? And to live a kosher, obedient, you know, Torah observing life to a degree. But it was more as a personality. And, you know, we talked about the Spirit. You know, Paul is very clear that God lives inside of you. Amen. So what's his temple like? Is it filthy? Is it full of dust? Or is it clean? Right. So that means your spirit is what guides your life. Right. Not your knowledge. Right. Not your instinct. It's your spirit. Your spirit. And to do that, you have to spend time with him. With him. And if you spend time with him, and you know, disciples were Jewish. And the only thing they wanted Yeshua to teach him how to pray, because the next day he performed miracles. And said, oh, I want to perform miracles, so I want to know how you pray. How you pray. Isn't it interesting? They never asked him, it's to say, well, if he prays the next day, we can see him, he does this. I want to do the same. Okay. But of course, what they didn't realize, they had to give up their life to do the same. Surrender. You know, you have to surrender. And so that's what you learned through this process, the surrendering process? Yes. And so do you feel that once you surrender, everything else comes to you? Well, it's interesting. When I started photography, and I had my first exhibition in Melbourne, and you know, people come up, wow, it's amazing. I come home at night and pray, and the Lord said to me on a scale, he said, where am I on this scale? And I said, Lord, I love my photography, but I love you. So, well, he says, well, I'm 50-50 then, aren't I? I suddenly thought, ooh, you know what I did the next day? I closed my photography, I closed the Facebook, I closed the website, I put the camera away, and just closed. The exhibition was finished the next day. I did it for 2 years. And then the Lord said to me, I want you to start an online church that works for the Spirit. And that's how I started Voice for the Spirit. It's now been 4 years. And he says, I don't want you building buildings. I don't want you I just want you to go out there. And, you know, and that's how I started. And so I want you to share a word, how to love God. And it's all about that.
What advice that you would give someone in the twilight of their life, that you would give a male single man who's searching for a wife, who may have given up or think that maybe that's not in the cards for them or that's not in a plan for them? What advice would you give to a single man of your age?
I think it's important in the beginning of the word, if you read it in Genesis, because says a man was not meant to be alone. What does that mean? Yes, most men go to clubs, they follow sport, they have you and American guys have a lot of workshops that you work with lumber, you know, they have all this, but you're still alone. Okay? So if a man wasn't meant to be alone, well, that means you got to be prepared that God has a bride for you, you know. And if your wife passed away, if that's the case, well, if he feels that so that means you got to be prepared to sacrifice. You got to be prepared to give some of you away, but there's the benefit by it. You suddenly discover you do have a person that God's love, not her love, God's love through that comes to you. That kind of love doesn't depend on sex, doesn't depend on money, doesn't depend on the meal you're eating, the good cookies. What it depends on is the sincere love. So when you're both so old you can't even cope, you always have that love because it doesn't depend on anything else. But her is what I would say, the vertical goes to horizontal, right? From God. When you have that, that's a gift of God. We were not meant. I mean, a woman, you were created from a man's rib, right? That means you're part of him. Now, why didn't he make you separately from dust as he did man? Because he knew that, and I believe for every man, God has created a woman. But we rush ahead. It is looks or whatever it is. But one day God brings someone, my wife is that woman.
And I really feel that men need to know that it's important to have a wife for that and family, the sense of family.
That's
because
right.
you see a lot of men in the hospital settings, the nursing home settings, who are crying because they didn't commit to a woman and they didn't create a family, and now they're alone, no one to tend to them, no one to stand by them, and they're going through their next chapter or their second chapter by themselves. And just that feeling of regret that we talked about, Sharon and I talked about earlier, of those decisions that they make in the light years, that in they didn't know how much it was going to affect the twilight years. But Psalms 112 says that a man who delights in God's commandments, and wealth and riches shall be in his house, and his seed shall be mighty upon the earth. So I really feel that each man should, and the Hispanic community have this right too, with knowing that their seed is their legacy. Having their children walking upon earth, and their essence is right here on earth to keep moving forward in the next generations to come.
And she should say this, see, both of my daughters have totally rejected me ever since I accepted. Sure. They knew me as an atheist.
Oh.
They all atheists.
You're an
both of them.
atheist.
They're lovely girls. They want to have very much to do with me. Cheryl's family embraced me.
Okay.
Her children has embraced me. That's a gift from God. I didn't ask for that. All I've done is showed a genuine love for their mother. Right? I came with no money. It just, so they could see who I am. They really embraced me. Right? And
that's family.
And that's family. So But it's a gift from God.
It's
You know
a
what I'm saying?
gift
It's a gift
because
from God.
God said, "Who is my mother? Who is my brother?" Jesus said, "Who is my mother? Who is my brother? Those who do the will of my Father." So and that's family. So all family not kin. All family not kin by DNA, but all family is those who are familiar to us. And maybe your seed, those who share your DNA, may have rejected you, but you still invested in family. And that's the point that I want to reign clear, that family is important, and it may not come through kinship, but it can come through familiarity.
But if you look at Lot's life and the end of his life, God gave him a new family, gave him a lot more prosperity, and look at the tough he has to go through, you know.
Yes.
And so for those guys at my age or younger that struggle through life, you know, they got to remember, if they set their eyes on him, he knows what they need.
He
knows what they need. Are they willing to surrender? Well, that's when giving up your rights becomes reality. Because you got to give up who you are. You got to give up what you believe, you know, as a person, you know, and your habits need to eventually be prepared that they're going to annoy somebody. My habits do annoy Sharon all the times, you know. But the center he's the center. And I wouldn't do anything to jeopardize what he gave me. At the same time, I'm me. So there are times I will upset her.
Right.
There's times she will upset me.
Right.
But would I throw the towel in as a lot of men or women do? No, never. Because it's not her. When we did the tattoo, it wasn't before her. I was before him.
Okay.
And my mentor that married us on Skype through internet on Skype when he was in Sydney, it's him. I said, and it was her daughter and her husband was there.
Wow.
They the ones I'm responsible to. I said to God that I will do that for her. I said to the kids that I will do that. I said to him. So if I chose, it's all too hard, as many men do. It's all them that I have upset, particularly him. So there's no room to say no, I can't do it. I can say, look, I can't deal with it. Can we get some help? Or I need to be alone for a week or two. I accept all that.
So after meeting your wife on a dating site, would you suggest that other men sign up on dating sites, or what would be your other approach to meet the ladies?
As you know, I met by accident, and I would never go to a dating site, you know. But it doesn't mean it's what is important for me was, you know, when she said to me, I prayed, and God said to me, if you want this man, you can have him. That means God knew, because I wasn't like, you know, And so what I'm trying to suggest is and I did a teaching for a while, the difference between falling in love and growing in love. Now, falling in love is dinner, kiss, unfortunately for some men is bed, you know, that's falling in love. Right? Growing in love, it takes time.
Yeah.
It's commitment, it's sacrifice, it is patience. And I've been trying, because we all fall in love, you know, but are you prepared to grow in love? And for some of us that's been married before, as I have, or older as I am, it's tough.
Right.
I was alone for 5 years when I met Sharon, on my own.
Okay.
Right? So suddenly you have to share the home and habits, kitchen, bedroom, all this stuff. It's not difficult.
Closet space.
All this stuff, you know, it's not easy. And then, of course, I'm Australian, Polish, she's American.
Okay,
she's
so you
very
have two
American.
cultures.
Yeah, and so all those things, you know, but it's because he is the center, and I gave up all my rights, and I've learned to be content with nothing, because I know he's there. And the most important, I can be honest, I'm ready to die right now.
Okay, because you're content.
No, not a problem. I know where I'm going. I know what's going to happen, and you know, and I'm ready to die today. You know, and it doesn't concern me. The only thing that would concern me is to leave her again, as she been a widow for 5 years.
Okay.
It's not fair.
Okay.
It's the only thing I said. You know, at least I want to give her some life with me. But for my personal reason, no, I'm not frightened. Praise God, I'm exceptionally healthy, and I'm very tough. You know, I take care of myself, and yes, I eat a lot of vegetables, because I do. You know.
So what is your plan that you say that you're living after it? Living after it, the atheism, getting a new wife having a new family, living in a new country, and embracing a new culture, what is your plan to live beyond the story that you knew?
I think, it's funny, it is very important to really, the word tells us we're in this world, but we're not of this world.
Mm-hmm.
And so, if God placed us in this world, the word that comes to me is contentment. I have to be content.
Mm-hmm.
There's certain things I can't do because of my age or whatever. So for me, it's important that we live within be content in our heart, be
Mm-hmm.
content what we're doing, and accept that lots of things we cannot do.
Mm-hmm.
Lots of things we cannot. Because this world is all about achieving, growing, having more,
Mm-hmm.
And contentment brings you down to today. What is this that I can do today?
My daily bread.
Yeah, what I can do today
Mm-hmm.
that fulfill the goal that I want in 10 years' time. Now we're
Okay.
starting our base kindergarten.
Mm-hmm.
We've got a 2-year plan.
Mm-hmm.
God forbid I get sick in 6 months, or
Mm-hmm.
we might only grow one vegetable
Okay.
to be content.
Just be
So if you don't have these expectations, we're going to do this, we're going to do that, but you do plan, so contentment is important. The world we live in, particularly here or in Australia or in Europe, doesn't teach us this.
Mm-hmm.
It teaches to strive, to achieve, and there's nothing wrong with that.
Mm-hmm.
It's to go after. But it
Mhm.
also doesn't teach us when it doesn't happen easy.
Right.
What do you do with it when it
Mhm.
doesn't happen easy?
And be grateful for the process.
Yeah.
And be content. Because when you want more, you always want more. More beget more. So then nothing ever becomes enough.
No.
You don't have enough. And everything looks like, I got to get it. But when you go through the process, being grateful for what you have and being content in that moment, you're able to appreciate. And God gives us creative knowledge in whatever area of life that He needs us to go. Like you thought it was photography studio that you was going to grow and expand in that. And then He had an idea for a church. And now the people that are growing and expanding from the gift that was in you in that particular chapter and season of your life. And that's why we created this platform, so that we can love through things, learn from it, and how to live after it. And if I could sum up this, Mr. Uri Fogel, I would say that we talked about loving God, loving our neighbor, loving ourselves, being content with what we have, and being grateful.
That's right.
That's right. So every Sunday, we would come to you Sunday evening with conversations like Mr. Uri and myself have had today. Click on the link below to see more shows. Or you can join us on the Facebook page at Sage, the Season and the Singles. Or you can follow us on Instagram and YouTube. And also I want to invite you right here in person to Atlanta, Georgia, to join us April 18, 2020 at the I Am the Gift Experience Conference, Loving Yourself, Mind, Body, and Spirit. Please sign up now. We only have 90 seats available, and I want you to be in one of those seats. Once again, my name is Candie, Zenon, author and life coach, helping you love through it, learn from it, and live after it. See you next time.